Of course, it's hard for us to talk about this. Anyway, we are old, and we saw what happened with our own eyes. When someone tells, it doesn't hurt that much. And when you've been through all these trials on your own, it's hard to think about it. Anyway, the first thing I want to say is this. Yes, we are Muslims, but there are also Christians. And there's someone to say, he's not Muslim, he's bad, that's wrong. I always say that. Because a Russian soldier helped my mother, there were 7 children in my family. I was 9, I was the oldest. One soldier, it was morning, about 2 o'clock. Cars arrived and stopped near our house. When the cars turned around, the headlights were shining in our window. My mother counted, 1 car, 2 cars, 3 cars. Then my mother said, "Vait, run, I think all the mullahs will be evicted from Crimea." I ran to my uncle Osman. He was a mullah. He was sentenced to 10 years in prison. I ran quickly to him. There were already many soldiers on our streets. We knew from childhood where dogwood and plum were the sweetest. We used to run away from school and go into the yard through holes in the fence and steal berries. Knowing these holes in the fences, I ran to my aunts and told her they were sending out mullahs. My aunt answered me to go back to my mother and tell her that all Crimean Tatars were being evicted. I was held by 2 soldiers, but I broke free and ran again through these holes in the fence. They could not catch me. I came back home. There's already 1 soldier at home pushing mom, and she's holding a baby. All the children were clinging to my mom's dress. 6 children. All of them had 1-year age gap. Like a staircase. Anyway, then I came. He wanted to kick me out. But my mother said I was her child. The soldier looked at us and sat down. All the children were crying. Mom was confused. She can't pack food or things. All the children clung to her and began to cry. That soldier started helping, as best as he could. Then the officer saw it. He hit that soldier. He took the gun from him and kicked him out. He sent us another soldier. Another soldier came. He started shouting, "Come on, come on, come on." And we knew Russian. He started pushing out all the children and my mother with baby in her arms. Then he saw children crying all the time, such a fuss, everyone was confused. He went out to see if there was an officer in the corridor. He came in and started helping us, too. If that soldier hadn't helped us, Mom wouldn't have taken anything with her. My father was working in a store at the time, so my mother managed to take 2 suitcases with shawls. These shawls saved us from hunger in Uzbekistan. For 1 shawl, 1 pound of grain. I remember that. We didn't have the opportunity to sell them. But there was an Uzbek woman next to us. She helped us. We were loaded into a car. That soldier helped us. My mother was able to take a lot. I remember. There was this copper basin. She took it. It seems that we were not taken to Evpatoria, but to Feodosia. My friends were there, too. And in Feodosia we were loaded on a train. We got on the train, There was very noisy. There were 7 families in that car. It was very crowded. When we were loaded, it was such chaos. There were cats there, we say kedi. They were meowing, running around these cars. The dogs were howling. All the animals were screaming. Aunt Emine had a cow. It was black and white. I can still see it. She calved. There was a calf walking next to her or something. I don't know what happened. You should have heard her scream. Aunt Gulsum said to the soldier, "I'll go untie the cow, let her go." She must have calved. She was supposed to calve today. They wouldn't let her do that. And before the cars left, we heard these animals screaming and the dogs howling. Such chaos was happening in the village. I've never heard such sounds. Cats on one side, dogs on the other, and cattle on the third. Fuss and chaos. Children were crying, old people are confused. If there was such chaos somewhere right now, I don't know if they would have survived. So we came to Feodosia. In Feodosia we got on a train. Windows were closed on the roof. It was stuffy. We've never felt this way in Crimea. But when we arrived in the steppes of Kazakhstan, it was already impossible to tolerate it. 12 to 13-year-old children and older children were put on the third shelf. The elderly were in the middle, and the sick are at the bottom. Those who lay at the top, all undressed, on top of each other. There was such a stench. You have no idea. If the train stopped, then no more than for 10 to 20 minutes. We tried to cook something, found a tin. Somebody was bringing water. We found a tin and made dough on it. Then we built fire. But even if the train had stood for half an hour or an hour, this scone would still not have had time to prepare. We just took some dough, and when we were hungry, we ate it. And what we were given can't be counted as food. Just boiled water was given. Was it worth waiting for good food from the authorities? Anyway, we arrived in the steppes of Kazakhstan. A lot of people died. One person died in our wagon and was taken out. They put a few rocks on top, and we were told to go up to the wagons. If you didn't obey orders, they fired once or twice in the air, and then they could kill you. Our lives mean nothing to them. That's how they left the dead. There were those who gave birth in the wagon, too. It was noisy. There was nothing to cover them with. On one side the children sit. On the other a woman gives birth. It's still in front of my eyes. We have been through such trials. We got into Katakurgan. In Katakurgan, muddy water was flowing in the ditches. And those who drank it got sick right away. Dysentery. That's how they started dying. We came to the Karaderia district, Collective Farm Pravda. There seemed to be 35 families from our village. There were people from the village of Odas, from Kapsahor. In the collective farms Yani Yal and Varashilov there were people from the whole Sudak district. When we arrived in the village, the Uzbeks did not leave the house. Didn't show up for 1 or 2 days. On the second day, our neighbor came. She was without a husband. She had a son and a daughter, Malek. She was a good woman. She came and said, "Salam alaikum." My mother replied, "Alaikum salam." "You're Muslim, too, aren't you?" They hugged each other. This woman has done so much for us. She went to the market and brought us something. She rode a donkey to the market. And we didn't have a donkey, nothing. We arrived and there were such houses. Either they were prepared especially for us, or before us. These houses were also inhabited by those who were deported. No windows, no doors. Houses made of mud. We were placed in such houses for 2 to 3 families. Our neighbor was there, I forgot his name. There were 7 children in their family, and there were 7 in ours. We're all in the same house. My mother told me to get some reeds. I brought it. We made a bed out of reeds. The windows were closed with reeds. There were a lot of mosquitoes. And so little by little. I brought dry branches, and my mother started cooking. "Take the cauldron," my mother said. There was a cauldron. Very small. 1 or 2 spoonfuls for 7 children, and there was nothing left. But that's how we lived. Then people started dying. We have 4 younger brothers and sisters who died for 28 days, and my mother died. In 28 days. I was already 12 years old. I was a 12-year-old kid when I had to dig graves for them. And what graves could I have dug? I dug up the ground with a shovel and buried it. The children and I buried them. Again, the Uzbek neighbor gave us a donkey cart. We loaded the body on it and took it to bury. There were so many jackals in those years. You bury it, and then the jackals pull out the body. My uncle arrived on the 2nd day after my mother's death. He heard the news and came. "Vait, let's go and say a prayer for your mother," he said. We went there and all that's left of my mother was bones. The jackals dug the grave and ate everything. And my brother's sister, too. There were no buried people left in this cemetery. People had no strength, they were all swollen, eyes, hands were swollen. We didn't have the strength. And many people soon died. Old people, 1 or 2 people died every day. So our people disappeared. We came to Crimea in 1990. On May 2nd we moved to Simferopol. We live near Simferopol in the village of Ivanovka. There is much more to tell. If I tell you everything, it'll be difficult. A lot of people died. I don't know. I've never seen a healthy person get so swollen. From hunger, of course, hunger is hard. We were looking for dead donkeys, dogs. We found a donkey once. We cooked its skin for 4 hours, but we couldn't prepare it. Then you chew it a little bit, and it doesn't chew. And we swallowed it. These are the days we've been through.